Mangwanani Mwalelepo Krekwas, welcome to Africa. Good morning, your portal into Africa's potent stories, where headlines meet insight and every voice matters. From Madagascar, where soldiers join protests calling for reform, to Seychelles, where Patrick Herminie ends Wavo Ramkalawan's presidency, the winds of change are sweeping across the continent. Cameroon votes under Paul Biya's long rule. Ivory Coast enters a tense campaign, and Morocco's king calls for unity amid discontent. Plus, economic updates from Nigeria and South Africa and FIFA's billion-dollar football investment. The Zambia report with Mike Sichula wraps up this vibrant African week. Watch us on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com and NTV Africa on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly. Let's get into the top stories on Africa. Good morning. Madagascar's Prime Minister Zafi Sambo appealed for calm and unity on Saturday after soldiers joined youth-led protests that have shaken President Andry Rajolina's government. The demonstrations, which began on September 25 over persistent water and electricity for the first time since the unrest began. Addressing the nation on state TV, Zafi Sambo said the government was ready for dialogue with all factions, including youth, unions and the military. The army chief Rajolina's resignation and institutional reforms. Amid rumors of his departure, the presidency denied claims the president had fled. The UN estimates 22 people have been killed, though the government contests the figure, citing 12 deaths. And as of this morning, CAPSAT says they are now in control of the broader army of Madagascar. Former Parliamentary Speaker Patrick Herminie has defeated President Wavo Ramkalawan in Seychelles' runoff election, reclaiming full control of the government for the United Seychelles Party. Official results released Sunday confirmed Herminie's 52.7% victory following the party's earlier success in regaining its parliamentary majority after a decade in opposition. Ramkalawan, elected in 2020 as the first leader outside the United Seychelles since independence, campaigned on economic recovery and social welfare expansion, but lost amid accusations of corruption and environmental neglect. Herminie vowed to reverse a controversial hotel project approved under Ramkalawan's government, lower the retirement age from 65 to 63, and implement truth and reconciliation recommendations tied to the 1977 coup. Once accused of witchcraft in 2023, a charge later dropped, Herminie promised renewal within a party long criticized for past corruption. Despite Seychelles' status as Africa's wealthiest nation, challenges persist, including high heroin use and vulnerability to climate change. Herminie's win signals both a political comeback and renewed debate over the archipelago's future direction. On Sunday in a presidential election widely expected to extend President Paul Biya's 43-year rule. At 92, the world's oldest sitting leader faces several challenges, most notably former government spokesperson Issa Shiroma, who is 76, whose campaign has drawn large crowds and cross-party endorsements calling for change. However, Biya's control over state institutions and a divided opposition make his re-election likely. Critics blame his long tenure for decades of economic stagnation and rising unemployment in the nation of 30 million, though the government insists Cameroon has relied on limited public appearances and state media promotion. Voting began at 7 a.m. GMT and will close at 5 p.m. expected within 15 days. Political analysts predict Biya's powerful electoral machine will secure another term under the country's single-round system. Despite frustration among citizens calling for change, few expect the veteran leader's grip on power to loosen after more than 4 decades at the helm. Ivory Coast officially launched its presidential campaign on Friday, marking the start of a tense 2-week contest ahead of the October 25 election. 5 approved candidates, including incumbent President Alassane Ouattara, are competing in a race overshadowed by controversial disqualifications. The Constitutional Council rejected several high-profile bids, including those of former President Laurent Gbagbo and ex-Credit Suisse CEO Tijane Thiam, sparking opposition outrage and planned demonstrations. Ouattara, representing the ruling RHDP party, began his campaign in Abidjan, joined by challengers Jean-Louis Billon, Simon Gabor, Henriette Lagou, and Awa Don Mello. With 33 million citizens watching closely, the election holds major stakes for stability in the world's top cocoa producer. Memories of the 2010-2011 post-election violence, which claimed thousands of lives, continue to haunt the nation. The Independent Electoral Commission has urged calm as tensions rise. Political observers warn that exclusion, disputes, and fractured alliances could trigger unrest, testing whether Ivory Coast democracy can withstand its turbulent electoral history. Morocco's king opened the final legislative year on Friday with a call for seriousness and responsibility as he addressed Parliament alongside Crown Prince Moulay Al Hassan and Prince Moulay Rashid. His speech, highlighting the nation's development model rooted in equity, social justice, and inclusive growth, urged lawmakers to accelerate key reforms and ensure support for vulnerable regions, mountain communities, and oases. The king stressed collaboration among political actors, local lenders, leaders, and media to strengthen citizen engagement and overnight in major cities including Rabat, Casablanca, and Tangier, where demonstrators voiced anger over corruption and poor social services. Critics accused the government of prioritizing World Cup infrastructure, organizers temporarily anticipating acknowledgement of sport. And in that report, one of his top stories is President Hichilema saying U.S. aid cuts an opportunity for Africa's economic independence. Let's have a look at the weather before Mike joins us. It's time for us to talk to Mr. Mike Sichula as he delivers the Zambia report from Lusaka. Mike Udwanji. Report from Lusaka. Mike Udwanji.
Bueno, Muribwanji, Africa, good morning to our dear viewers.
Bueno. Getting into your first story, Mike. President Hichilema says these U.S. aid cuts are an opportunity for Africa's economic independence.
Yes, quite a brave statement made by President Hakainde Hichilema. As you all may be aware, the U.S. aid cuts following the new administration of Donald Trump has affected Zambia because the U.S. aid has been one of the key contributors to the health sector through PEP in the provision of medical support to the fight against HIV and malaria in some cases. So speaking to the Financial Times in London, President Hakainde Hichilema described the abrupt closure as a shock, but said they've learned. The president said Zambia must now focus on growing its economy and enhance domestic revenue to finance sectors such as health and education. The president went on to cite the 2026 national budget, which has increased to the health sector of about declaration in terms of Zambia giving support to the health sector, because the Abuja declaration did 58 cut so that Zambia becomes self-reliant in terms of providing health services to its citizens.
Well, Mike, as we wait for the burial of Edgar Lungu, the former leader of the Patriotic Front, there has been an underlying conversation which has needed to be had. It's been in the hallways, it's in the backdrop of the Patriotic Front, but for any political analyst or
about three parts where there is two political alliances which were left by the late President Edgar Lungu. So the late President Edgar Lungu, when he had retired from active politics, he came back into politics with a core of uniting the opposition political parties, because according to him, the Zambian democracy was under threat, and he needed to come back so that opposition political parties were grouped under what was being called, under what is called the Tonse Alliance, where there are a number of political parties coming together with the sole aim of going to challenge Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. But under this alliance, what is that like the Tonse Alliance, it has now been divided into two parts, where the other part comprises former cabinet ministers. Then the other part of the Tonse comprises mainly of people that belong. So now the other part, now what has happened is that people are asking to say, what is the roadmap in terms of who is going to be the successor for President Edgar Lungu, and who is going to be the person that is going to challenge Mr. Hakainde Hichilema under the Tonse Alliance. So these are the divisions that have rocked the Patriotic Front, because people now do not know what is happening. So a number of people have called on the Tonse Alliance to ensure that they bury their differences and forge a stronger alliance that should embrace all the alliances that have been divided to come together in order for them to have a stronger and formidable candidate. But from the look of things, this is not likely to happen, because the two alliances that have split from the Tonse, they seem to be determined to have a separate presidential candidate. But the issue is, where is the Lungu family, for instance, going? Which alliance are they going to support? So one of the alliances is going to South Africa to meet with the Lungu family to discuss on the issue of the burial of Mr. Lungu. But it is also likely that they are going to discuss the issue of if whether the late president's daughter, Madam Tasira Lungu, wants to be a running mate, or she's also interested as a presidential candidate as the country heads into the elections next year.
Now, Mike, Zambia is set to launch a new malaria vaccine specifically for young children.
Yes, this has been this was reviewed by the government, because malaria has been one of the killer disease in the health sector. But what has happened in the past few months, there has been an end malaria campaign supported by the Western countries or the donors, and this has been successful, because in some areas, for instance, like the capital city, Lusaka, there is no malaria. So if someone is detected with malaria, they usually suspect that this person is coming from outside Lusaka, where malaria has not been contained. So under the new arrangement, the Ministry of Health with the End Malaria campaign, they are going to target regions where malaria has not been contained. So it is likely that those areas that previously were reporting a lot of cases of malaria will be considered under the new campaign that is likely is going to be launched before the end of this year. So it is something that has also pleased people in the health sector, because what has been happening is that when the country goes towards the rain season and when it is also hot, there's a lot of malaria cases that are being reported. But considering that some regions, out of 10 regions, Lusaka is one of them that malaria has been contained. The Copper Belt, $600 in the setting up of a 500 megawatts power of electricity in Sorwezi. 500 megawatts power of electricity in Sorwezi. So Sorwezi is the new copper belt of Zambia, because there are new mining companies that are coming up. So the issue of provision of electricity in that area is something that is crucial. So Sorwezi is going to have a new project in terms of electricity, because this project will be implemented under 3 stages. Then the team of experts under the energy company is scheduled to conduct consultations from today to the 19th of October 2029 in terms of where this plant is going to be set up, and like got on board in terms of jobs for the local people, and also the marketability of solar energy in this region, which is in the northwestern part of Zambia.
All right, Mike, we end with some sport, and you can decide if it's positive or not. I've got a feeling it's going to be the latter. How did Zambia fare in their last 2 World Cup qualification matches against Tanzania and Niger?
Against Tanzania last week, Zambia did manage to beat Tanzania by 1-0, and that goal you can get scored by Fashion Sakala, who had just returned to the national team. So with Zambia beating Tanzania on that night, it brought some hope that Zambia could be one of the best 4 countries that are going to play the playoffs as best losers. However, when they played against Niger yesterday at Ndola's Levi Mwanawasa Stadium, Zambia lost to Niger by 1-0, meaning that Zambia could not make it to the privileged 4 countries as best losers to play the playoffs. This result has completely dashed their slim hopes of playing the playoffs for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. So a number of soccer fans have called to dismiss current coach Avram Grant, because they think he has not done enough. Because in the last 3 World Cup qualifiers, or let me just say, Zambia has lost 3 times at home. They lost to Tanzania, they lost to Morocco, they have now lost to Niger in the World Cup qualifiers, something that has not pleased so many for soccer fans. And the Football Association of Zambia is likely to issue a statement on whether Avram Grant is going to continue as the Chipolopolo coach heading into the Africa Cup of Nations with the setup in terms of the performances that have come in as far as the World Cup qualifications are concerned.
Mike, thank you very much for delivering the news from Zambia. And as you know, I am a real supporter of Chipolopolo, and we will rise again.
Definitely, we should rise again, and we appreciate your support for the Chipolopolo. Africa, good morning to our dear people.
Africa, good morning indeed. We end the broadcast with some economic news. The European Union has announced an 11.5 billion euro investment plan for South Africa targeting clean energy infrastructure and pharmaceutical development. The initiative, which was unveiled last week, seeks to accelerate the country's renewable energy transition through new power capacity, grid upgrades, energy storage, and green hydrogen projects. Key investments include the Kurga Green Ammonia project and expansion of vaccine and pharmaceutical production for the African continent. The EU's renewed funding push follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's ongoing efforts to attract investors and combat unemployment on South African goods. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen had pledged €4.7 billion in March, though it remains unclear whether that amount is included in the new total. The announcement comes as South Africa faces sluggish growth and energy instability. The EU emphasized that the plan will strengthen long-term economic resilience and deepen trade ties. The move underscores Europe's growing strategic interest in South Africa's green transition and industrial diversification. In our last story, FIFA President Gianni Infantino announced that more than $1 billion has been invested in African football since 2016 under the FIFA Forward program. Speaking at the 47th CAF Ordinary General Assembly in Kinshasa, reaffirmed FIFA's dedication to empowering African youth through football and fostering development across all 54 member associations. Investments have reached $1.06 billion and are projected to rise to $1.28 billion by 2026, supporting national federations, regional bodies, and clubs. Infantino highlighted Africa's rising global presence. Thank you for joining Africa Good Morning on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub, that is on YouTube. We will certainly be back tomorrow, making sure that you stay informed on everything happening on this continent. Keeping in mind, on oneup2.com, if you click the echo icon, you can watch the show again. Swera Zvakanaka.